Good morning and welcome to this Clover HR webinar, which is on returning to the workplace in line with COVID government guidance. My name is Louise Rance. I'm a HR business partner with Clover HR. A bit about my background: I've worked in HR for 25 years, both at HR manager and HR business partner level, working for such companies as Manchester United, Probation Service, Calico Homes, Great Places Housing Group, to name but a few. My current role is to provide services to small and medium-sized companies and organisations who either need additional support with the HR or don't have their own in-house HR service. If you have any questions during the webinar, please just pop them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will come to them at the end. I have muted your microphones. This is just to enable the webinar to flow freely. So this is what we're going to cover today. So we're going to consider what's the current government guidance on COVID and the workplace, how to manage this transition from home working to being back in the office or workplace. We'll then look at hybrid working. What is it and would it work for your organisation and employees? We'll then consider how to implement hybrid working and creating a policy. We'll look at the legal position in terms of roles and responsibilities of employers and employees in hybrid working. I'll then give you some other sources of information that you can draw on. We'll consider how we can help with this transition and situation here at Clover HR. We'll do a quick summary and then questions at the end. The current government guidance, as we all know, COVID's been with us for a long time, 2.5 years now, and the COVID rules and regulations have changed during that period. Currently in England and Scotland, people are no longer being asked to work from home, so there's not government guidance to do that. In Wales, working from home is recommended from the government where possible, the same in Northern Ireland, and Republic of Ireland from the 24th of January this year, a phased return to offices began. So let's consider how to manage this transition from home working to being back in the office or workplace. So under the Health and Safety Act of 1974, employers have a duty of care to take all reasonable steps to ensure the health, safety and welfare of their staff. One of the ways that employers can do this is to complete a risk assessment that includes the risk from COVID-19. Now, it was mandatory and legally required to do this under the COVID regulations. There's no longer a legal requirement to do a risk assessment that includes COVID-19, but it is still highly recommended. And that risk assessment would include the measures to set out in the guidance. So that might be increased cleaning of communal work surfaces, increased ventilation, turning away people who are required to self-isolate because they have contracted COVID-19 or have symptoms. And I'll come back onto this shortly. For further information on all that, if you go to the Health and Safety Exec website, which is hse.gov.uk, for information about compiling a COVID risk assessment, and that includes a really useful template. Regarding the self-isolation rules, again, there's now no longer a legal requirement to self-isolate if an employee either contracts COVID, tests positive for it, or shows symptoms of it. However, it is highly recommended that if possible, and if that person is able to work, that they work from home, or if not, that they are encouraged to take sick leave in the normal way, because you still have a duty to protect all your employees and your other employees from the risk of contracting COVID-19. As part of this transition, then it's highly encouraged that you talk to all your employees to agree the arrangements for a return to the office and consult with your workers and trade unions where possible. And when you're having these discussions with your employees, you would communicate the safety measures that you have put in place. So that might mean sharing the risk assessment with your employees, with contractors, with visitors to the office or workplace. And then look at making returning to the office an attractive proposition. So sell the benefits. Some people will be more than happy to return to the workplace. They may have found, if they have been working from home, found it to be quite isolating, because we've got to remember there is a large social aspect to work, of working collaboratively with other people in a physical workspace. And a study has been done on this by a company called OC Tanner, and they've done a global culture report that looked at people's experience of the workplace. And they surveyed 38,000 employees. And of those employees that they surveyed, 63% of them said that they had found it more challenging to form new friendships when they've been working remotely. So 63% have found that. And 60% said that the office or workplace is where their new friendships are formed. So there is, as I say, a large social dimension and rationale for people working physically together. So you can communicate these findings to your workers and your employees. And when you're having these discussions with them, do remain responsive to your workers' needs. Find out how they're feeling about returning to the workplace. Do they foresee any barriers to that? And ask them about, has anything changed since they were last in the workplace? Because some people might be at higher risk of severe illness from COVID-19 because of their health issues. So you need to establish if people fall into that group. And also to workers that face mental or physical health difficulties. A lot of people have developed a lot of anxieties about returning to the workplace. It's going to be a big change for them. So you need to consider that and consider how you can ease this transition and reassure them and put any measures in place. And if they are telling you that they have got health issues, or these might be health issues that they've developed, or they might have had COVID and have some long COVID symptoms, then consider any reasonable adjustments that you could make to their pattern of working, the way they work, their role, as part of this consideration. So moving on to hybrid working and what is it? So hybrid working, it's a flexible way of working which incorporates home working and working from the office or place of work. And there are various different models of hybrid working that you can adopt. But it is a model that has the backing of both business and employees. And a YouGov survey that was commissioned by ACAS found that over half of employers in Great Britain, so 55%, expect an increase in staff that will be working remotely or from home for part of the week. So it's very much in the corporate and business landscape. And a report entitled Work After Lockdown showed that 7 in 10, so 73% of employees wanted to adopt a hybrid work arrangement. And it's likely that hybrid working will be an attractive arrangement to both existing and future employees. So this needs to be considered as part of a recruitment or retention strategy. So how to implement hybrid working? So the recommendation is that you consult widely with staff to discuss the practical considerations about introducing hybrid working. So what you'd be discussing with your staff is whether the hybrid working would work for their particular role. So you can adopt different arrangements for different roles. So consider whether it would work for certain roles and is it suitable for your organisation. And you can have different arrangements depending on the role and the needs of your employees. So you can discuss with your employees which roles can and cannot be done from home and why is that. Find out who may or may not want to work from home. Some people will, some people won't. Some people might not have the right work environment at home to work from home. And these would be the sorts of things that you would be exploring with them. So when you're doing this exploration with your employees, then you need to think about or discuss with them what would be their arrangements for working from home. Do they have a suitable workspace? that can accommodate working from home. So let's consider about how to create a hybrid working policy. So the policy would need to cover what the commitment of the organisation is to flexible working. How often the policy will be reviewed, because it would need to be reviewed on a regular basis. And what are you going to offer in terms of hybrid working? So the options you might have might be that home becomes the main place of work. You might have a mixture of some days working from home, sometimes working in the office or workplace. You might have people that work from home but travel out to customers' premises, or you might have people working in a co-working space. So you need to spell out what will actually be available under the hybrid working policy. And then looking at who is eligible for hybrid working. So at the moment, for people to make a flexible working request legally, they have a legal right to do that after they've worked for you for 26 weeks. But it may be you might want hybrid working to be available from day one for new employees, or it might be that you want your employees to have completed their probation period first, or have completed certain training. So you need to kind of spell that out, that eligibility out in your policy. And then look at how to apply for hybrid working. So do you want people to complete a certain template? Do they do it by email? Do they do it by letter? But that would need to be set out in your policy as well. And then about assessing the work environment. So you'd put in your policy what steps you would take to assess a work environment if you were considering about people working from home. So that might involve doing a health and safety risk assessment of their home working environment, considering what internet connection they would need, considering about what equipment might need to be supplied to them. And then you would need to communicate in your policy what's the decision-making process and how will that decision be communicated. So you need to set out a fair and transparent process, set out who will make the decision and what steps they will follow. And whether there's going to be a right of appeal if somebody applies for home working, and if it's not thought that it's suitable for their particular role or their circumstances. So introducing a hybrid working policy, other considerations that you would need to make. So set up costs and expenses. So you would need to explain in the policy what costs you will pay as a company. So that might mean that you might say provide furniture, a printer, equipment, laptop. You might provide costs for broadband and phone, and also spell out what you expect your employees to provide. So that might be heating and lighting, etc. Considerations for mortgages, leases and insurance. So your employer's liability insurance should cover any loss that you might incur in terms of property or equipment, and also any claims by a third party. But you would need to make sure that your employees know, and you probably put this in your policy, that they would need to tell their mortgage company or their landlord if they do intend to work from home, and they might need to check with their home insurance as well. Employer access. So you would spell out in your policy how frequently you might need to access your employees' premises to look at their home work environment. And this might be for the setup and maintenance of equipment, to do a health and safety risk assessment, to do electrical testing on equipment, etc. And then also put in your policy about moving home, how much notice would your employees need to give you, so you can set up their home working environment for them. Also in the policy, performance management. So you would need to spell out in the policy that there wouldn't be any difference between people that are working from home, the way that their performance would be assessed, to people that are working from the office or workplace, so they would be treated equally. And security, you need to explain to your employees about security of documents, security systems on laptops, to make sure that all confidential information is secured. So the legal position on hybrid working, if you do agree hybrid working, then you may need to change your employees' contracts. For instance, if it currently says in their contract that their workplace is a specific address and what hours they work, if that is going to change to either a change to working from home or a mixture of working from home, that would need to be reflected in their contract. And you could put those changes into a letter or email. You don't have to do a whole new contract. You can do it as a contractual change. So what's the legal position if somebody refuses to return to the office or workplace? It might be that they've become very comfortable if they have been working from home and that arrangement suits them. There might be particular issues with them arranging childcare. They might have underlying health conditions. They might be anxious and have health and safety concerns about how safe is it to return to the workplace. So these are kind of valid and real concerns that people might have and that you would need to address. So the suggestion there is that you meet with employees to explore and address any concerns and barriers that they have and see what you can do to kind of minimize those barriers that they are perceiving. And when you've done that consultation, you then need to make a well-informed decision. So ensure that your organisation has completed a risk assessment and that you're following all the guidelines. Ensure that you have been reasonable and listened to the concerns and possible objections of your employees and decided whether you feel they are valid or not. But ultimately, if as an employer you can show that you have acted reasonably, then and if your employee is still not agreeing to return to the office or workplace, then disciplinary procedures can be instigated for failing to follow reasonable management instruction or unreasonable refusal to return to the workplace. So where can you find out more information? ACAS has got lots of really detailed and valuable information on their website. So that's ACAS on www.acas.org.uk. You can have a look at the health and safety website, which I've referred to already, which has got lots of useful information and templates you can use, which is at www.hse.gov.uk. And you can also have a look on our website, which has also got lots of useful resources at www.cloverhr.co.uk. So how can we help here at Clover? Well, here at Clover, we've got a team of experienced and qualified HR business partners who can help you with a smooth transition back to the workplace that's in line with COVID-19 guidance. We can also provide training for your managers on how to promote flexible working and hybrid working and deal with any employees' concerns. And if you would like a free hybrid working template, then please email me and I will send that across to you. So in summary then, we've looked at what's the current government guidance regarding COVID restrictions, how to manage the transition from home working to being back in the office or workplace. We've considered what is hybrid working, what's the considerations, how to introduce it, and the legal position on roles and responsibilities of employers and employees. We've outlined sources of information and how Clover can support your organisation. And if you would like a free hybrid working policy template that you can then adapt for your organisation, as I say, please email me and I will send that across to you. So any questions? Okay, so there don't seem to be any questions coming up at the moment, but if you do have any questions, I do encourage you to drop me an email and I'll do my best to answer any of your queries. So thank you very much for attending and listening to this webinar. I hope it's been useful. As I say, my name's Louise Rance and I'm the HR business partner for Clover HR. Have a great rest of the day and hopefully see you on another of our webinars. Thank you very much.